Hey everyone, I'm outside taking a break and writing out some posts. Uh, Today's episode, my name is Keshia Martin, a spiritual teacher and energy healer. And one of the misconceptions that we all have in regards to duality is, or having faith, is that everything's either one way or the other, And there's been a lot of chitter and chatter, and I'm sure the people are starting to go from one thing to another thing to another thing. So, what I mean by that is, from whether you're going from like a religious perspective to being spiritual to being conscious to whatever the new labels are, it all boils down kind of to the same thing. And my mission, my purpose in doing what I do is to break down all these barriers because it all boils down to one simple thing, which is love. It's written on my shirt right here. It all boils back to love. Regardless what you grew up with. Some grew up as Christian, some grew up as Jewish, Muslim, Hinduism, Judaism. I think I said that already. You guys get the point. Is that regardless what religion you grew up with, whatever book you grew up reading, whatever Trinity you believe in, Father, Son, Holy Spirit, whatever the case may be, when you really start educating yourself, you realize there's a deep synchronicity between all of them. Okay, um, there's some things that are done on the outside, and there's some things that are done on the inside. Okay, so this is the blending of the dualities. Within yourself there is a spiritual being, and this spiritual being is who you truly are. They've done where science and metaphysics is getting involved, and more scientists are starting to find the logistics of how some of this stuff that seems so mystical is actually true and congruent into our natural beings. You know what I mean? So, what does all that mean? It really means that um, they're they're figuring it out. You know what I mean? Like the real reasons on how we're here, we are truly starting to find things out, and a lot of the things that they've given us to eat, or the things that we put on our put on our bodies, or whatever the case may be, we are starting to see more and more how these were designed to keep us from connecting within, keep us from being unified with the universal source, whether you call it God, Allah, whatever the case may be. It's the same. There's one source of energy. There's one unity that we all connect to. Okay. Um, the challenge is that we've all been learned or been brought up to be mind centered versus heart centered. That really means that we're being forced to utilize our form of thought and thinking on how to create and feel as though that we have the power to do these things. So therefore we're always working and doing things outside of ourselves. Like we're getting a job, we're finding friends, we're going to churches, we're doing all of these things. If you even look at someone like Jesus, he wasn't in a building, but he was connected with the divine, and he walked around and he gave the messages that needed to be given. So the church was within him, the light was within him, and the teachings that he was giving you is showing you that this same light is within you. The challenge is, even when you read on the biblical terms, is that a lot of folks did not believe that the light was within them, and as a result, he'd have to talk about faith and belief, and he would say that all they needed was the faith of a mustard seed. And if we think of a mustard seed, it's like one of the tiniest seeds you can think of, and if you can't have that level of faith, then you really are lost. Okay. Within the teachings. When he went away for 40 days and 40 nights, and he had to get tested, and he went through his trials and tribulations, a lot of that was going within. He went within himself. He went and connected to God. He connected to be a whole, to go into the level of oneness. He wasn't just living on the outside and being a part of the world, but he was actually being here within himself and being connected to the actual source. The challenge is because we seen, or we hear, because they seen, whoever lived in those times seen that, they believe that because he came a certain way, that they couldn't have that power, that they couldn't believe within themselves. And as a result, through history and the various teachings that have gone throughout the years, where only certain levels of people could learn how to read, only certain levels of people had a power to educate, this message has been convoluted and brought down throughout history, and has created a level of disconnect within many human beings. This is why they don't believe in God, because a lot of them are seeking outside of themselves. They're going to a church, they're going to a building, they're going to other people to deal with their inner beings. They are not connected with the spirit. As you feel levels of stress, tension, anxiety, anger, hostility, these are all signals within your body that not that God stepped away, or that the universe stepped away, or that everything else is failing you, but more or less that you're stepping away from your true inner being, and you're thinking that you're in control. You're thinking that this is all up to you, and that unless you make these decisions, that this isn't gonna happen. The challenge is you're doing it the wrong way. You're going backwards, because you're thinking everything goes in through your head, and you do all the logistical thinkings first. Where in truth, if you're heart centered, and meaning that you're connected to God the way we're supposed to be, and like a lot of the people on this planet have not been taught that way. So it's getting out off of your own high horse, and removing your own ego and thinking that you got this and you don't need to listen because that's your ego talking, and actually realizing that to be heart-centered is to actually truly connect within yourself. And none of us on this planet has it down pat. Some might be a little closer to others. Some may be thinking that they are, but once again, that's just your ego, because you're not going to get there until you truly, truly, truly learn how to embrace everything that's here and way beyond our scope of sight, sound, and feeling. All right. So to be Christ conscious, to believe in the teachings that were taught then, even when the thousands of years before him, or hundreds, I have to figure that part out. Buddha, when he existed, there was no Google, but yet these two men and yet these teachings are very, very similar. Like the words that are being sent out. Same with other faiths. These people have been said to say and do some of the similar things. The challenge is everyone wants to be the right one. Like there can only be one way, and we need to really lose that, because look how many human beings are on the earth. Look how many nationalities, how many faiths, and how many beliefs, and how many things that have been put in place. That all of it comes from somewhere. So maybe removing the veil instead of thinking there's just one thing. And then start embracing the fact that throughout history there's been multiple people that have come here to help teach, deliver, and help unify and show love, and that you have these gifts within yourself. The problem is no one wants to believe that they have this love within themselves because they've been hurt so much. So to get past this, understand that there is a duality, and to get to the level of oneness, that you have to embrace both physical and spiritual aspects of yourself, and that the physical is usually a representation of what's going on the spiritual. For the outside is a reflection of the inside. Okay, so if mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and physically on the inside you're not doing well, it will represent itself on the outside. Okay, so this was just my little chat about duality, going into oneness. It's going to go in a lot deeper, but I wanted to be able to touch on this topic because there's so much going back and forth, especially with a lot of people coming in as conscious workers, and some are coming in almost as high horse as some religious leaders, and that needs to stop, because at the end of the day, that's your ego speaking, and it's important that anyone that's seeking guidance, that they learn how to discern from people. Okay, I know my nails look messed up, but it's all good. I couldn't find the nail polish remover, but the point is, you gotta find the discernment within yourself. You got to find what makes sense and find the levels of truth. And you'll know that when you feel a level of peace. I know when I'm working with folks, sometimes I scare them because the truth hits that hard. So sometimes the truth will put you in a fearful factor, because now it's touching a nerve. It may be something that hurt you in the past. It may be something that created pain or angst or anxiousness, or bringing you back to a point where you were actually right, but then people persecuted you for it. And that's a part of the growth process. To switch from being mind-centered and heart-centered, you're going to go through some pain. I'm not even going to BS you about that, because that's all 100% truth. And as you're switching over, your mind is going to tell you some crazy stuff, like, it's not true, you're crazy, it's who are you to think that you're special, you can't be God's gift, you can't be this, you can't be that. It will rack and drive you crazy if you don't learn it to control it. And that's called anxiety. It's when the amygdala, I always say it wrong, don't laugh at me, it's Keshia, I'm a human being. So it's when it's responsible, it's this part of the brain that's responsible for fear or flight. So basically, when a certain experience or a certain thing comes across, and you start to, and it reminds you of a past experience that hurt you, automatically your protection and defenses and energy within you starts to come up, and the pain or the pit in your stomach or things that you may feel are all signals, physical signals, that things being signaled from your brain, where is that something's wrong. Okay, and that's your pull away from your spirit. Okay, so this is like your signal on how to reconnect, that it's time to reconnect within. All right, so there's a lot of information in about 12 minutes, but I hope this finds you well. All right, so this is Keshia Martin, your spiritual teacher, your energy healer / energy healer. I do individual coaching, and look out for some group coaching programs coming up. I'll have some links on the website. I'm working on a couple of that, and a couple other projects, just to kind of get these messages out there, because it's very important for everyone to start learning how to identify within themselves, and not just try to be like this woo-woo, let me be this master spiritual person, because there's a good and light in everything, and there's a process to this stuff, and you can only try to go one way so far and only get before things hit you, slap in your face. Okay, because overall we all are about love, and it's about making changes, and one by one we each can do this. All right, so if you find this well, I'm trying to reach 1,000 subscribers, hopefully by June. I am far from it, so I truly need your help. It's like, I need sharing done, we need pushing, we need some chatter, all of that, so love, share, comment if you have any questions about your own growth, because a lot of people are scared, and then you have to make a decision. You have to ask yourself, is this fear or is this faith? And sometimes you won't know. That's cool. Take a deep breath, walk away from it, come back, and it'll set in when it's ready. Okay, don't force it. All right, because if you're forcing it, then that's back to your mind, and you're not being heart-centered. All right, and that's just a technique I have to teach, so that way you start learning how to be able to think for yourself by feeling for yourself and discerning information for yourself. All right, so Keshia Martin, subscribe to the channel, and I will see you again next time.